Hi everyone, Scott with CyberScribe.org, and in this video we're going to be configuring and setting up SSH, and we'll connect to it at the end of this video. So in previous videos we talked about basic configuration of this switch. As you see here, I'm connected, and I'm connected with the console cable as well. So we will I want to show you one command before we start, but we'll go through and set up with the host name and the passwords and all that stuff. And then we'll talk about the SSH stuff. So in the beginning, when I'm setting this stuff up, I'm not going to go into too much detail. So check out the earlier videos if you want more of a thorough description on what I'm doing as I'm doing this stuff. So one thing I want to show you first is, say you want to go to the global configuration mode, but you type it wrong. Well, the problem is, you see what it's doing? It's trying to map that to an IP address. So what we're going to do is, there's a command called no IP domain lookup. We're going to do that, and that should be part of your repertoire of when when you're setting up a router or a switch, because at this point you're using IP addresses to connect to your devices, not really host names. So that's what we'll do. I'm going to pause this because this can take a while. Control-Shift-6 is the command supposedly, but I just did it, so we'll come back in a couple seconds when this is finished. Okay, we're back, and so let's start configuring the switch, and we will put in that no IP domain lookup just in case you make a spelling mistake. So let's set the host name first. Test. Okay, and then let's just go right into the no IP domain lookup. Now let's test it out. Oh, hold on. We'll change that with the logging synchronous command as well in a minute. So do you see how it didn't try to contact the domain server and resolve that? So that's no IP domain lookup. That's right here. So that's one that you want to be putting in. And we did the host name. So let's set a default gateway. Okay. And the IP address, remember I'm on a DHCP network, so if you're just plugged into the switch and the switch isn't plugged into anything, or your network doesn't have that DHCP server, then your IP address here should just be blank or unassigned. So let's change that. We've been using 200, so let's just do that now. And it's VLAN 1. You see, that's the standard interface for the switch. Okay, and let's configure some passwords now. Remember, secret is the encrypted version. Password would show it in plain text. And we'll do a show running config when all this is done, and you can see the changes. Console line, get into that. Just do the logging synchronous command right now. And let's set a password. Cisco, login. Remember, you need that login command. And we'll do the VTY lines. And let's do a show running config now and see if we're missing anything. Okay, we have our host name, we have the secret password there. No IP domain lookup, you see that? How it shows up in your running configuration there. Okay, interface IP address right there, 200, we changed it, and the default gateway is set as well. And then your passwords. Okay, one thing we forgot to do, you see this? How it says password Cisco, and then password Cisco. Let's go and do the password encryption service. Okay, now let's do show run, and it should be encrypted right now. Yep. Okay, let me see that. All right, I believe that is it for the base configuration. So let's go and start working with the SSH setup. So if you're not familiar with SSH, I mean, I'm not really going to get into a big deal right now about what it is and what it's about. Just think of it as secure communication, encrypted communication. Because it's encrypted, you need to create these public and private keys, and that's what we're going to do right now. So the first thing that we need to do is set a domain name. Now this domain name, you don't have to own it or anything like that, but it's just that's what they ask for, so that's what we need to put in. I'm just going to say example.com. Next we need to generate the key. So crypto. Okay, now there's a couple different ways to do it. We can type in the modulus right now. And then, up to 2048 bits. I'm just going to do 1024. But another way to do it is just generate RSA, and then it'll ask you. So we're going to say 1024. And this will take a couple seconds. The bigger the key is, the more time it's going to take. So remember, when you do SSH, you have a username and a password. It's not just a password. So also, you're going to find too, when you set the username and password that we're going to do, right now, is Telnet will also ask for that username as well. So let's do that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, username, admin, password, Cisco. Easy passwords, easy username. In a production environment, use something a little bit less obvious. But here, it's fine for what we need to do. Now remember, it's going to be from the VTY lines that you're going to be connecting remotely from either SSH or Telnet. So we need to do this command, transport. And let's see what choices we have, Telnet or SSH. So what I'm going to do right now is just say SSH. So what that means is these lines are only going to accept incoming SSH connections, meaning Telnet is not there. So Telnet should be rejected at this point. Login local, that means to use this username and password that we set up. So it's not going to try to go out to a different server and get the credentials there. So just locally use the local information that we've already provided. Okay, and one other thing we want to do, let's just take a look at some of these commands. Okay, IP SSH version. Now there's only 2 versions. You can see right here it defaults to version 1. But we want version 2 as it's just the more updated standard. And let's take a look at, just do show run, and we'll look at some of these other things. Okay, now we can see here for the VTY lines, we have the SSH, so it's only going to accept that, and your login local. Up top though, remember when I was first showing you the show running config, I said, well, don't worry about these are just standard default configurations. Well, that's what the IP SSH timeout and IP SSH authentication retries. Those are just the standards for that. So let's go and actually change those, because we saw we can do that here, right? We already did the version, so let's just change these and then just take a look, see that we changed them. I'm going to say timeout, and let's just say 60 seconds. And for the authentication retries, we'll say 4, just to see the difference. and you can see right here. So the changes have taken effect, and they're in the running configuration. There's just now show commands. There's a couple, not too many for SSH. So let me just let you see a couple of those. Show IP SSH just gives you some basic information on just the things that are in the running config. It doesn't really tell you anything new. One that is useful though, and this may be useful if that's what you're looking for, is show SSH. Now you see there's no connections running right now. So if somebody is connected, it will show here. You'll be able to see the connections, the incoming connections. So that is useful. And like I said, I'm on the console line right now. But nobody's connected other than me right now. But if somebody was connected, and when I move to the next computer and connect remotely, I'll show you that. So right now, like I said, what I'll do is move to the next computer, and then I'll connect remotely from there and show you how all this stuff works. Okay, so now we are on the remote computer, and we're going to connect to the switch that we have in the other room. Remember, we did the transport input SSH on the VTY lines, those remote lines. So it should only accept SSH. Let's test that out. And yes, this is a Linux computer, so if you're using Windows, you'll be using a terminal emulator for these things, and it'll look different, but you're still putting in the same information. And you see connection refused. It's not going to accept anything but SSH. That's the transport input SSH, the command that we did. So let's go and do that. Remember, admin was our username. And it's okay. This is not the first time that I'm connecting, so if it is the first time, say on PuTTY, you would get a pop-up saying, well, we cannot verify the authenticity, do you want to continue? And just click yes. Here you would get a message saying the same thing, and you just type yes. That only happens the first time, because then it stores that information. And that's our banner, and we are good to go. We're connected to the switch. And let's just check out the... Remember, when I was at the other computer and there were no connections, it said just there's no connections. Well, take a look at this. It's a little bit different, and it shows, right? You have some information over there. You have username admin. That's who we connected as. Where are we at? Right there. And that is that. So let's do this. Let me just go and change that transport input, and let's just allow everything. And then I'll just exit out and then try to connect with Telnet. Let's do that. Remember, it's the line VTY015. Input. Okay, so we're going to go all. The protocols here are SSH and Telnet, so you don't have too many choices there. But now, and let's see if it... Okay. Now, if you recall from the last one, it said transport input SSH. So we did that command. Let's exit out of this and try to connect with Telnet again. See? And now we can connect. And remember, username admin and the password, because Telnet is using the username, the remote stuff that we set up as well. Okay. And that is all I wanted to show you today. So, we're kind of getting into this stuff now. And in the next section, the next videos that I'll be talking about, we'll be getting into a little bit more advanced stuff. And I think we're at the point now where we can start talking about port security on these switches. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you in future videos.